you at the end of the
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah, the
Thank you.
moment I start share screen, it says you cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing. So I think somebody else is sharing right now. Maybe after he or she finishes, then I'll try.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Doshi, now you will be able to share your screen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is it visible? Yeah, I can see it there on the screen.
Thank you so much. We will now start the presentation with Ashish taking the floor.
Good morning from Geneva, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this WTO Week session organized by the Permanent Mission of India to the WTO. This is the second of the two sessions that the Indian mission to the WTO has organized for this event. I thank you for joining us this morning and would also like to remind you that we had our first session in the morning covering two international organizations, the International Solar Alliance and the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. The recording of that session will be available on the WTO Environment Week page. This session, the second of the two sessions, is on introduction to life or lifestyle for environment. Indian culture and way of living has always focused on conscious consumption. Concepts like circular economy are deeply ingrained in the social norms, even if many people may not be aware of the terminology itself. As we fight the climate and environment battles, Indian Prime Minister, His Excellency Shri Narendra Modi, launched this initiative called LIFE earlier this year. While there's a lot of discussion on production-related carbon footprint, we don't hear much about consumption side changes or improvements which are possible. So LIFE is an attempt to discuss this topic. To talk more about it today, we have with us Mr. Yugal Joshi. Mr. Joshi is Mission Director LIFE with Niti Aayog, or National Institute for Transforming India. This organization is the brain trust of the government, working on various transformation ideas and programs. With me on stage also is Mr. Amitabh Kumar, Joint Secretary in Department of Commerce in New Delhi. Mr. Joshi, in fact, joins us soon after concluding an event this morning, about 3 hours ago, on LIFE in Kevadia, which is a destination tourism town in Western India, where earlier this morning, the Secretary General of the UN, His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, joined His Excellency Prime Minister Modi for this launch of this initiative. So we come here to Geneva in almost near real time. Mr. Joshi, I'll invite you now to take over the presentation.
Thank you very much indeed. Grateful for this opportunity to speak to this August gathering here. And indeed, it is a historic moment today. We had, in the presence of Secretary General of the United Nations and with the messages and support of more than 10 countries, we launched this global mission for life. The environment crisis, everybody understands. The most important thing about today's event was that, in fact, last week only we started a grand challenge called 21-day challenge for adopting environmentally sustainable and pro-life behaviors. So more than 50,000 people have already joined in a short span, and they have kind of taken a commitment to adopt and to propagate environment-friendly lifestyles. About the event and the importance of it, we will come little later. So in today's very important this session, I have divided my presentation in 6 parts. First, we will be talking about the reality of the climate change. I don't think there is anybody in this August gathering who is unaware of what kind of climate crisis we are facing. Then we will be talking about the traditional society's behavior, not only in India, but across the world. We have human beings are here since a million years almost, and we have our own traditional practices. The industrial revolution has changed that scenario a bit, and in last 40, 50 years, 4-5 decades, we have seen that how human interventions has altered the climate. Then we will talk about what is the mission life and what the philosophy behind this mission life is. Mission life per se is not very challenging until and unless we have some kind of defined goals. And if we have some strategy and a mission that what we want to achieve in a given period of time. So for that, there are objectives and the targets of mission life that in 1 year, in 5 years span, how much we want to do, how many people we want to join this movement. Then we will talk briefly about how we plan to implement mission life in India. This is just because to give a glimpse, maybe other societies, other countries, according to their environment, according to their understanding, according to their societal need and financial economic needs, they can adopt these. And finally, in Indian perspective, how we are seeing that the mission life in India is going to change, it's going to impact the environment and climate. So first, when we begin the reality of climate change, we all are aware that how atmospheric carbon dioxide that for last 800,000 years was consistently below 300 parts per million is now today about 420 ppm and still creeping. We don't know where it will stand until unless there are some kind of progressive steps are taken. Very interestingly, this morning, Prime Minister talked about important thing that he told that climate change, normally people take that it is an issue that is related to the policy that leads to a thought process that it is very important issue for the governments and the big international institutions only. But he underlined that in past few decades, we have started, the common man has started experiencing the effects of the climate change. And there are enough examples all around the world that how people, either there are those flash floods, there are dry seasons, forest fires, other things we have seen, how people are really now feeling the heat of this climate change thing. In India, we have seen how Himalayan ice sheets has shrunk 10 times faster in last 4 decades than it was in last 7 centuries. People who visit Himalayan sites, who go to the icy peaks of higher Himalayas, they experience how plastic waste has created a big nuisance there, and how the migration, because the upper reaches in the Himalayas, they are nearly drying. The water sources there, the springs and the other things, the traditional water sources there are fast drying because of many reasons. That may be employment, education, and other things. People are deserting their villages. But one of the main reason of deserting those villages is the menace of this dryness. The springs, wells, these all are things drying. So climate change is very much visible there as well. For the coastal areas, we have seen that how global sea level has been rising consistently. And there are predictions that by 2050, it may rise from 2 to 6 feet. As a Swiss report suggests that if we maintain the status quo, we do nothing about climate change, then we will be losing 18% of the global GDP by 2050. In India, we have experienced this, that this year, April to 2022 was the hottest month in last 122 years. In fact, we have been experiencing here that erratic rainfall. Earlier in India, there were 4 months of rain, very much traditionally practiced religiously or socially. There were festivals and other things associated with them. But we are now realizing that slowly but surely there is some kind of shift in this pattern of heat, then rain, and the winter in India. Air pollution alone is reducing. We were talking this morning a huge thing about solar power, but in India, air pollution alone is reducing this solar power capacity by a huge percent, almost 1/3. So associated economic loss with that are huge. There are hello, is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yeah, got it back. Thank you. So what is life? The Prime Minister, as I said, he said that normally we leave these all issues to the bigger institutions and the countries. But he said that the way people are now witnessing, this is the time that people now have to take lead in it. So this lifestyle or lifestyle for environment, LIFE mantra, is kind of most democratic mantra where people can associate it with these big climate change issues. There are in this slide few issues how individual actions can affect these things. Like the studies show that if only 13% of global population adopt lifestyle change, it can result in 20% emission reduction. So global populations, almost 1 billion people in India, if follow these all practices, we can achieve scientifically these all goals. Similarly, we have this wasted food is a big issue, not only in India, but across the world. And the fuel wastage in 30 minutes of red light idling can provide up to 6 hours of electricity to a school student. Very interestingly, this morning, Prime Minister gave these two examples. One example was, how much fuel is wasted at the signals, traffic light signals. And second example, he gave about the positive thing about LED bulbs. So how there, because of some environment friendly or energy saving policies of the government, how slowly private sector pitches into it, and how that kind of circular economy which we talk, that takes shape. This is a fact that 15 to 20% loss in annual wheat yields will be happening if there is a 3 degrees Celsius rise in temperature. This we have seen everywhere. The recent floods in our neighboring country are a kind of signal that what future looks like if we are not taking enough action on climate change. In India, we have this study that if 780,000 rides per day in India, if they carpool, then 380 million liters of fuel can be saved. For everyone, every country like India, which is dependent on imported petroleum, this is something which people can ponder about. And if we educate people, if people know that how their simple actions, when they aggregate, when they accumulate, how big they can save not only for their environment, but for their country's economy as well. Similarly, the study says that if we recycle 1 ton of newspaper, it can avoid 25,000 liters of water wastage and 3,500 kilograms of landfill. There are many stories about how much water is used in producing meat, in producing agriculture, in producing all kind of human activities. So there needs now to be educate people about judicious use of these things and the mantra of reduce, recycle, reuse. So these things, if we tell people, and we have seen, like I have been interacting with many people in last 4 nights, and if people are aware, if kids are aware, there is a huge enthusiasm that why they cannot switch to their present lifestyle to and some environment friendly lifestyle. In last 2 years, we have seen how COVID-19 showed us and realized us in a very brutal way that we are on the mercy of natural world. Humans, being a part of this intricate environment system, cannot separate themselves from this. So our future is linked with all other species, all other plants, and everything which is there in this earth. So wasteful consumerism, normally, whatever we do, wasteful consumerism affects everybody. And it is, in a sense, like this morning, Secretary General of the United Nations also said that this wasteful consumerism is a very big reason for this deepening climate crisis. So responsible individual climate action, if we say, and if we start doing this, if a family starts doing it, a unit of 4 people, then it propagates to say village, or then the municipality, then city, and then into the whole state or country, then it will be going to be very huge. Here in India, we realize that if we compare with the world, our carbon footprint is very significantly lower than the average. But that is not stopping India to take lead in this battle for taking back our environment. And we have seen traditionally in past many thousand years that how adopting or how propagating the traditional practices can save you so much amount of energy resources, that can save precious resources like water, that can stop more pollution of the air. These are the few examples. In fact, a couple of months back, in our Ministry of Water Resources, we compiled, there are how many rainwater harvesting or traditional water conservation cultures are there. And we ourselves were very surprised to understand that in every region, depending on their ecology, depending on the kind of environment they live in, depending on the economy of their people have devised different kind of water conservation systems. And unfortunately, slowly, with government supporting big way, people are forgetting these things. So there is a huge need that we not only sustain, not only teach people about the traditional water conservation systems, but we should adopt that in a way that we can utilize them in more efficient and effective way in modern systems. Similarly, we have seen that indigenous communities are really the guardians of biodiversity. You go to the Kerala, you will see that near water bodies, people normally make some kind of place of worship. You go to the Himalayan states of Uttarakhand, there you will find that the traditional water springs and other things which they call nalas, from where they collect the water for drinking, they kind of make it a place of worship, of some kind of very sacred place, so that people don't pollute these things. So these practices, which have been there in the indigenous societies since many centuries, we must kind of not only honor them, but we should understand the real philosophy behind that. And we should include this whenever we teach our younger generation about sustainability practices, good sustainability practices. Alternative to energy intensive practices are common in India. For one single example I give, normally, when young children go to the Western countries for studying, normally they see that the clothes and other things, they are, after washing, they are drying in dryers. In India, I don't see that many families still use dryers to dry their washed clothes. Normally, we dry it in open. This is just an example. I'm not saying that one is bad or one is good, but we should see that wherever we can, if there are natural resources available, if sun can open can dry your washed clothes, I don't see there is any need for going for very high energy intensive machines or technology for that. Similarly, as far as practice concerned, most of the Indians, 60% of the Indian population lives in the villages. And in the villages, there is this big custom or tradition of recycle and reuse of traditions. Normally, in Indian villages, people don't take it good to throw away the things. They try to, some kind of put those things, use things in a reuse. Here, in my mind, comes one example from Singapore. In Singapore, you know, the Singapore's history and how it became uh, from a water scarce city dependent on imported water to a water sustainable city state. So they don't say wastewater to their used water. They call it a used water because in nature, as far as my understanding goes, the water which dinosaurs used to drink, we also drink same water. So it's a recycling or of water that happens every time. And we normally human beings also drink that recycled water. So they don't call it wastewater, they call it used water. Similarly, all the sources, if we have such kind of understanding, if we have this philosophy, or if we have proper technologies for that, that things which are we are using today, they are not the waste, they are some kind of, can be reused again. Perhaps we will develop a kind of mindset that tomorrow, before throwing anything, before this consumer this throwaway culture, we can somehow bring back people to make it a habit that they can reuse or recycle their materials. This is about recently launched. Why we are saying that people can do it? Because our past experience of 6 to 8 years tells this. First thing I would like to talk about the Clean India mission. In 2014, when Prime Minister from the Red Fort said that, okay, in India, everybody should have toilet. So people said that, this coming from a Prime Minister's mouth from the Red Fort, it's some kind of different thing. But talking about the reality, he was talking about the sense, because at that time, out of 1 billion people of the global burden who were defecating in open, 60% of that was in India. Around 550 million Indians were going out to defecate in open. So Prime Minister took it. He took the leadership of it. In fact, he was not only the communicator in chief of this program, but he led from the front. And not only he provided enough finances for that, he always advocated that the people should be associated with it. All kind of partnerships, whether they are with the faith organizations, whether these were with civil society organizations, corporates, media, everybody he took along in that Clean India mission. And very interestingly, media also participated hugely in that. Everybody came together, and within a period of 5 years, there were more than 100 million toilets constructed. But the construction was not only the thing. People were given incentives to construct toilet was one small part of the story. The bigger part of the story was the behavior change communication, the kind of change it brought in the rural people, especially women. Women took the leadership of this Swachh Bharat mission in their hands. We often heard the stories how an 80-year-old lady went through her village to encourage everybody to build toilets at home. How a small school-going girl child went to her parents saying that we should have a toilet in our home. So this mass movement led to very huge thing. It became a huge thing, and it showed perhaps after independence, we talk about Satyagraha or India's non-violent freedom struggle. That was one part. So we thought that this Swachhagraha kind of commitment or kind of, some kind of zeal for cleanliness, this was a second kind of biggest mass movement India experienced since its freedom struggle. So that was huge. So this gave a lot of encourage to our government policy systems. So Ministry of Water Resources started water conservation campaigns, Catch the Rain or water conservation. Then similarly, for all these schemes, it was thought that these all schemes should be run with the support of people. There should be run in a mission mode, of course, because we wanted to do things quickly, efficiently, in time, but most importantly, people should be made an active part of it. Similarly, if I would like to discuss India's recent program, which is to provide safe, clean tap water to every household. So like when this program was launched in 2019, out of 180 million Indian households, there were roughly only 30 million households where there was availability of tap water connection, clean tap water connection. So the program was that within a 5 years, the target was that every household in India should get this tap water supply. So how to do that? When people decided, the policy was made that the women or the village water and sanitation committees, they should be made in charge of those things for single village water supply systems. That means a single village, people plan for that with the help of the engineers, with the help of public health engineering department engineers. They make plan for their village. They also study the source, kind of source it is. Then village sits together. This village water sanitation committee, roughly 15 or 20 members are there, half of which mandatorily should be women. They sit and they decide what kind of plan they want. Then with the help of PhD, ED, they lay down the pipes and bring water to their homes. But the story doesn't end here. Once you provided water, that does not mean that it will be flowing continuously for that. So what will happen to their maintenance? How you are going to ensure that they are getting clean tap water supply? So again, women and the local villages were made an important part of it. You will be very surprised to know that out of roughly 600,000 Indian villages, in more than 450,000 villages, there are already these village water and sanitation committees do exist. Not only that, there are almost 1 million women who have been trained to use portable kits to test the quality of the water. These women are trained. They go to the houses of their village randomly and they test what kind of water people are getting at their homes. So this is giving example of these things, just my objective to underline the fact that how in India we have been involving people, individuals in our big government flagship schemes. Similarly, a few years back, there was this Gram Swaraj Abhiyan. If I can translate it, it will be some kind of village development program where 6 or 7 government programs were taken and officers were asked to go and help villages to achieve those targets. They were financial programs were there. Similarly, the programs like cooking gas to every household. Similarly, this program kind of inspired people to have LED bulbs. Government also gave some kind of incentive. Government also gave supplied these LED bulbs. But very soon, private sector pitched in, and in India recently, their numbers are overwhelming that how many households are using these LED bulbs and saving electricity. So inspired by these all practices, Prime Minister from the very beginning, this has been his mantra that taking people along is the key for success of any mission, any program. So if you see this slide, since 2018, February 2018 to be precise, he has been advocating how our traditional practices can contribute to a sustainable lifestyle. First, he talked about it in World Sustainable Development Summit, where he said that, how important it is that in our ancient text, we say that this earth is our mother and we are its children. So we have to take care of it. And most importantly, the nature, if you protect the nature, nature protects you. After that, when he received this Champions of the Earth award, he said that, what kind of leading lifestyles which are harmonious and sustainable, which are into our ethos or traditions, how they can benefit the environment. So these are some of the examples where he has continuously been advocating about these sustainable life practices. Then finally, last year in November, COP26, he introduced his vision of lifestyle for environment, where he said that all of us should come together and take it as a campaign that it becomes a mass movement of environmentally conscious lifestyle, so that we individually also can contribute towards this. The main mantra of the Prime Minister has been, instead of mindless and destructive consumption, we should be thinking and we should be practicing mindful and conscious consumption. When we adopt this strategy that we are mindful what we are consuming, whether it is good, whether it is required, whether it is a necessity or a luxury, then slowly we tend to, kind of demand those things in a more judicious way. This year, during his Independence Day address, he talked about 5 commitments. These 5 commitments are the key to make India a developed country by 2047. So the most important 5th commitment in this is how we are engaging each and every citizen in all government policies, programs, and how citizens themselves become aware that what their duties and responsibilities are to make the society sustainable and to make country developed and to live in harmony with one another. And 3rd commitment was taking pride in the roots, the sustainable traditional lifestyles. If we want to adopt them, how we can go about it. And most importantly here is that these all things are pinned with the 1st commitment. This is not a step back. These sustainable traditional lifestyles can very well be practiced with the modern way of living, with the help of science and technology, the new kind of internet technology. These all things can go together. These are some of simple examples. Like this morning, he was narrating a story of normally what people do in their homes. If affluent people normally set their AC temperature around 17 degrees Celsius or so, then they use a quilt in the night to sleep. So he was kind of questioning this kind of philosophy, that if we can have our air conditioning set at 24 degrees Celsius, perhaps that will be a more judicious way of utilizing electric energy. Centigrade, if we go down, that consumes in exponential proportion the electricity. Similarly, if instead of using single-use plastics, and India has been very huge in discouraging single-use plastics since last 5-6 years, we have huge campaigns on against single-use plastic. So now the way is that instead of single-use plastic, can we use cloth bag to shop? Can we use cloth bag to go for grocery or vegetable shopping? Similarly, there is now a lot of thirst on individual cars to carpooling, or for small distances can we use cycles, can we use public transport. So these all things are part of different functions of adopting an environmentally friendly lifestyle. Now in our 3rd part, we come to the mission life. So mission life, as I said, it is India led a global cross-sectoral campaign to trigger environment-friendly behaviors in the daily lives of individuals. Here, we kind of started picking those small practices which people can do. And to our astonishment, there are more than 150 such practices. So out of those, we thought that at least 75 are those which people can do very easily. So our target is to create a mass movement where we are making people pro-planet. That means they are trying to adopt those habits which are pro-planet. Second thing is that can we do it? It should not be very fluffy only, the mere philosophy that people should do it. We have to put some kind of substance, some kind of bone and flesh into it. So how can we do that? Can we measure in say 6 months time, 1 year's time, how this program is running? Is there a substantial change? Can we measure that change? And if we want to measure that change, whether we should have some kind of units. So we take, for example, a village, that what changes in that village are happening because of these interventions. Can we have a district as a measuring unit? So these all things are there in the proposal, and we have been thinking about it, that what kind of measurement or survey system we should adopt, so that we can really see that if people are started behaving in certain way, how it is impacting their lives, how it has a positive impact on environment. So another question comes that, can government institutions help in implementing or help in supporting these practices? So based on these all questions, we tried to come out with some kind of solutions, which we recently, this morning only, we released a book on this document of Mission Life. I'll briefly discuss about that. But before that, what is this mission is all about? As I said that, we are talking about the simple actions that everybody across the world can take to protect the environment. And most importantly, it should not have any negative impact on the economic activities. A simple example, I talked about it, the LED thing. In India, when this LED revolution started a few years back, at that time, people were very hesitant. Industry was not supportive. But the kind of attraction or kind of support people gave to this thing, then industry and other things quickly came into it. So my point here is that if we are following a certain lifestyle, if more people are following that certain lifestyle, if millions or billions are following that certain style, so the processes, supply side processes will also kick in and the industry will positively respond to that. So this is kind of, we are creating with the existing markets, we are trying to create a new market in that. So fact is that it will stimulate growth and provide more jobs, because then we will be having, at least in the beginning, two different kind of models for that. As we know about the SDG 12, that is about responsible production and consumption, how these all simple practices can nudge those things. Next year in the world is the International Millet Year, where we will be talking about different kind of millets. In India, we have a huge strategy to promote millet. It is for both, for the biodiversity, for different kind of crop diversification. In India, at least we have 256 water scarce districts where we think, such less water consuming crops like millets can be very useful. So such kind of experiments in India we have been doing, that how we can develop this behavior that people go for more environment friendly crops, more environment friendly consumer items, and more environment friendly lifestyle. In India, we will not be having, it's not kind of support, it's not kind of, we are not talking about leveraging these resources of the government for this. It is a simple, every institution in their core economic activities includes life as its core activity. So that means any institution, if it runs some kind of program, it ensures that these environment friendly practices should be followed by its institutions or its departments. Globally, a kind of framework has been developed for which the people can practice life. We have also invited research papers and other things to see, how we can measure the impact of it, or how people can, through research or through studies or through their experiences, can suggest better, more life-friendly practices. Similarly, we are planning that next year on June 5th, we will be having a kind of good practices compendium released. We have this plan that slowly we will be engaging more countries. This morning in the program, which we have, the global launch of Mission Life by the Honorable Prime Minister and the United Nations Secretary General, 10 countries from different parts of the world, whether it is Argentina or it is Madagascar, Maldives, Nepal, UK, France, all came together. Their heads of states, they committed, they supported that they are with this Mission Life, and in their countries as well. They have been doing so many practices. So if different countries come together, more countries come together, people understand that it is the reality, and it will, there is no doubt that more and more people start behaving in this certain way that is environment friendly, and it is in next 4 or 5 years, we can see very substantial change. What is unique about this Mission Life? This is first of its kind. It is dedicated, and we are here talking about a limited time frame. We are saying that by 2027-28, we will be achieving this much. So this is a very focused program where all the behaviors lead to a result which is environment friendly. So coming back to this 5-year program, in India, we have objectives of these 5 mission life, where we are saying, we are planning that at least 1 billion people we would like to be, mobilized for protection and conservation of the environment in next 5 years. Mobilizing 1 billion people is difficult, we know. But as I gave you example of Clean India movement, water conservation movements and others, it is not that difficult. What we have seen, normally, people have this sense what is good or what is bad for them. Only thing is that if the atmosphere, the environment is such that they can adopt, it is facilitating people to adopt, it makes them, if it is making people easier to adopt those practices, then their job becomes a lot easier. Normally, all these big change programs where we talk about the behavior change, normally we kind of make our change leaders like students, women, older people, youths, all these we incorporate. And like we have seen in villages, if you are having a couple of volunteers, like in Swachh Bharat Mission, in Clean India movement, almost every village was having one volunteer who in the morning go to the people's houses, that we used to call kind of a watch unit regarding this open defecation. He will tell people, what is good and what is bad, how it is bad for their health to go out in the open. Then he will inspire other people. He will go to the schools, he will talk to the students, he will meet the women in the village, and he will try to create an atmosphere where people themselves, the women, the students, they take lead, the youth, they take lead to make their village open defecation free. So we have seen that the people can be inspired. Only thing is that, to make the environment easier for them to adopt these practices. And second thing, they should be made aware, these actions, how good or bad they are for the environment. Then they come very easily and happily to join the movement. So our target is that for next 5 years, at least 80% of our villages and urban local bodies aim to be environment friendly. So now the question naturally comes, what is the standard to declare a village environment friendly or not? There are no such yardsticks available, no such standards available. So in each country's context, we can devise that here on. So here it is a kind of proposal. It is not, there is nothing casted, or this is not a standard definition, but some kind of guideline we try to provide, that if a village, first of all, that village passes a resolution to, and they say that, okay, we will make our village a life village. That means it's environment friendly village. With the resolution, we make that every person in the village understands what are the good environment friendly actions, what are not. So then they come together collectively and they resolve to make their village life village. Then there are various issues, water and sanitation, how much funds you are getting and how much funds you are utilizing or not, whether there is kind of effective communication campaign where people are made aware that what is good for food, what is good for, water, electricity, what is good consumption. Then they should practice at least 10 life actions. We have a list of 75 life actions, and we are assuming that if 75% households practice at least 10 life actions, then that will be a huge, that will have a huge impact. Similarly, for institutions also, we have thought if there are schools or other institutions in the village, they should practice and promote at least 10 life actions. Almost on these basis, we have defined the urban local bodies, how we can say that these are environment friendly. Similarly, the districts and other things. Here, when talking about the districts, I would like to talk about these Amrit Sarovars or water ponds. This year only, a huge campaign was launched in India, where it was, the object of it was that every district, and in India, there are more than 700 districts. So every district should have 75 water ponds. So water, as you know, water always functions in a loop. So if we have 75 water ponds in a district. So this is good for not only water conservation, it is good for the groundwater. It is good for, rainwater harvesting. So it kind of not only conserves water, protects water, but it also preserves and protects the natural habitat around it. So in India, target it to make them in a big, so that everybody in the village, everybody almost in a panchayat, at least assembly of few villages, enjoys these all things. And these are always, constant reminders that how conservation of water is important. Similarly, to give a kind of structure to this life program, we are planning that in every district there should be some kind of dedicated life coordinator should be there, and uh, at block level, lower level, and at the district level, so that he monitors, he reaches to people, he reaches to different government departments, he collects data, and he keeps on feeding a system, which normally these days we do by a dashboard or some kind of portal where information from each and every district comes, and we see how districts are performing. This is the goal which we are proposing to set for ourselves, that in next 5 years, we will be having 1 billion people who will be pro-planet. These are the number of villages, number of ULBs and the districts. First year, our plan in India is that since we work in Niti Aayog, that is a National Institute for Transforming India, we will be incubating it, and then we will be giving it to the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, who will run it for next 4 years. These are some of the simple targets, and we have divided these 75 life actions into 7 sectors: transport, electricity, agriculture, etc. How we are going to implement, what should be our approach? The most important thing about life, as I said, that it focuses on the individual behaviors. Second thing is that it should not be isolated attempt. If one village is performing it, ideally the neighboring village should be inspired by it, or this village should try to inspire neighboring village or bring along that neighboring village to its activities. Similarly, this expands and entire global community joins in this movement. So here our approach is that we are focusing on top universities, think tanks, international organizations to kind of provide empirical solutions, for solutions for this, and some kind of scalable ideas which can be replicated in most of the places. Second thing is that we think in India that youth organizations, like we have many eco clubs are there in the country. Similarly, there are Nehru Yuva Kendras where young people come. National Cadet Corps is there. Young minds, if we can, if they can lead. Few years back, while doing this Clean India movement, we had a concept of summer internship, where we encouraged university students to go to the villages and their work for few days, and in return they were getting few credit scores in their degree curriculum. So the good thing about that program was that, number one, the urban students who had never seen the villages, they went to the villages, they studied there, and they kind of experience what kind of rural life is. Not only that, they educated people, the importance of cleanliness there. And this kind of urban and rural connect, that helped a lot, and that program, this Swachh Bharat summer internship, Clean India summer internship, became very successful. So we also plan that here youth will be a big part of this life mission, and we will be encouraging university students, senior students to go to the village or some and teach people about these habits. One more important thing about it, that leveraging Indian culture. We have these social norms, beliefs, and household practices which our society has been following since centuries, and they are environment friendly. Unfortunately, the younger generation, especially the young generation living in the cities, slowly they are forgetting the customs which were practiced by their grandfathers or forefathers and other things. So there is a need that ancient wisdom, which is environment friendly, which we have, that should not only be nurtured and protected, but all the people, the coming generation, should be told about them. These are some of the examples how individual behaviors can significantly impact climate change. The study shows that normally, while brushing, bathing, a person wastes 2.5 liters of water per day. So the Indian average is, there is some mismatch in the data. It should be less than that. But if we take only 2.5 liter per day a person wastes, and if we multiply it with the global population, you can think, how much water is wasted. Similarly, it goes, if you are turning off lights, AC heaters when in not use, if you can turn them off, how much kilowatts of energy can be saved per day. This is just an example to show that individual actions can matter. These 75 actions which I talked about, that which we have in the mission life document. So how we chose them, basically they should be relatable. The geographies, global, urban or rural, can practice them. Second criteria was that they should not have any negative impact on the economic activity. And finally, they should have some kind of positive impact on economic activities of the future. As I explained, how supply follows the demand. These activities are categorized on the basis of age, gender, urban and rural slightly, because in India, there is a vast difference between the kind of household practices done in rural and urban households. These are some of the examples. You are very well aware of these things, so I will not stay here longer. Now, this is one important thing, behavior change communication. Because of the technology these days, communication has become very easy. But effective communication is an art. Earlier, most of the government ministries were dependent on mass media campaigns, basically on television ads or the print ads and other things. But slowly it has been found that nothing can beat interpersonal communication. In India, fortunately, we have so many number of festivals and other occasions. There are very strong folk cultures, folk arts and other things. There is a series of festivals which can be leveraged to pass on this message of environment-friendly behaviors. Our experience has been that the social media works very well. In India, the number of mobile phones these days people carry is overwhelming. So if we have some kind of mixed strategies, and if I would like to give you one very cost-effective example here, again from the Clean India movement. For 1 year in 2019, in 2018, it was planned that how to propagate, how to inspire people to use the toilets. So the mission came with the idea that, okay, we should ask people to paint their toilets. Now, this is something out of the box kind of idea, that we are asking people to paint their toilets. So we launched a big campaign on that, and we asked people to paint their toilets, and we will be giving some kind of award to the best toilets painted. You will be surprised that in 1 month's long campaign, 13.4 billion toilets were painted by the people. So we called it in Hindi Swachh Sundar Shauchalaya. That means clean and beautiful toilet. So 13.4 million toilets were painted in a month by the people. So that was huge. We were having different kind of folk arts painted on them. People wrote slogans. The creativity of people is limitless. So you get so many ideas from them. And if you can inspire, these simple ideas, if people can connect with them, they can relate with them, that is the biggest kind of communication. Street plays, puppetry, storytelling, movies. The program, if people get involved, inspired so many, movie makers to make movie on open defecation, which was a kind of taboo subject few years back. So people made commercially successful movies on the subject of use of toilet in India. So these all things, the human channel of communication, as I said, in summers when students get their vacations, at that time, how to use them, how these local kind of networks, how they can be inspired to tell people about these things, the sustainable environment, sustainable behaviors. These all things we experience in the past, and we think that these all should be used to make people aware what is good and what is bad for the environment vis-a-vis their daily practices. So this is about making something a people's moment, a mass moment, how we are leveraging each and every section of the society from top to bottom, how people are encouraged to join the mission. This is just to show that this has been done in the past and this is very much doable and achievable. Pro-Planet people I talked about. Pro-Planet people is the one who follows these environment friendly practices. So we are planning to make influencers our ambassadors who can reach people. These days, there are huge icons, people follow them. They may be from the field of sports, from cinema, from any other walk of life. So their followers, it becomes very easy if some celebrity comes and supports your mission, and his followers or his fans follow the trend. But most of that, is that if that celebrity is really interested in your job and he kind of shows it with the example how he's doing or how he's behaving. Unfortunately, we are in the process of, there are so many celebrities in India who really walk the talk. Now, this is the impact of Mission Life. We source it from UNDP and some other sources. So it says that if these life environment friendly practices can be adopted, one urban household in India can save up to $800 per year. Similarly, a rural household can save $513 per year. Similarly, food saved figure are given there. And water, if water wastage we can stop, we can tell people, when to close the tap and how to use water judiciously. These all practices can save huge amount of consumable water annually. The waste to wealth idea was again given by the Prime Minister on the same concept. The traditional knowledge is that nothing is waste. And he said that how we can make waste to wealth. He gave many ideas, beginning from the biogas and others, and recyclability or reusability of the used items. If we consider that 10 kg of carbon dioxide reduction is equivalent to planting one tree, then these all actions taken together can have this impact of having 10,000 to 30,000 million trees planted annually. So this is huge. This is just to show that why there is this urgent need to bring people here together. So this is some kind of data is that if 50% of Indian practice only 3 life actions in their daily lives, how much money can be saved? These things can be used in communication or behavior change campaigns, and people can be told. One similar story which was very popular in the rural household, that in India we found there was a UNICEF study that if the village becomes open defecation free, every rural household saves directly or indirectly on its medical expenditure roughly 50,000 rupees. That is roughly $600 annually. That is huge. If people know, illness or some kind of unhygienic condition lead to such medical conditions where you are spending a lot of money. The number of deaths via diarrhea and other things are huge. So if people can be made aware that environment friendly lifestyle is good for them, it can save them money, it can save lives, and people naturally will tend to follow that. Finally, from our ancient knowledge from Atharva Veda, this is a Sanskrit shloka, which says that actually this is the concept of trusteeship. Mahatma Gandhi gave this trusteeship concept. Everything, whatever is here on the earth, we are not the owner of it, but we are the trustees. Whatever we have got uh, in the heritage from our ancestors, we have to provide that thing same. We have to pass that on to the next generation. If not in the same condition, then perhaps in a better condition, but at least not in the worst condition. So it says that we aspire to live long. Our children too would live long and be free from sickness and consumption. We all are reared up in the lap of the Mother Earth. May we have long life, provided we are watchful and alert and sacrifice our all for her. So, meaning by that, everybody wishes to live longer. And if we wish to live longer, then we cannot wish that our children's life should be shorter. So, this is kind of thing which we all have to imbibe and we have to practice accordingly. This is the movie which we played in the morning in the global launch of Mission Life. So I hope you will enjoy it. It tells about 5 steps which are very basic to the philosophy of life. I will try to run it. It is in Hindi, but there are supers or subtitles in English.
सब कहते हैं कि दुनिया बदल रही है। कभी कभी मुझे भी लगता है हमारी दुनिया बदल रही है, पर अच्छे के लिए नहीं, बुरे के लिए। पर ये हुआ कैसे? मैं भी चाहती हूँ हमारी दुनिया बदले, लेकिन अच्छे के लिए। और जब 2030 में मैं 21 साल की हो जाऊंगी, जोश और सपनों से भरी, सिर्फ मैं ही नहीं, लाखों लोग और भी, तब क्या हमारी दुनिया हमारे सपने पूरे कर पाएगी? 2030 तक ही तो हम सब ने सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स को पूरा करने का वादा किया है ना? मतलब आज से 2000 दिन बाद क्या हम वो वादा पूरा कर पाएंगे एक साथ? हाँ, बिल्कुल। शायद इसका हल हमारे पास है, बस जरूरत है तो इसे जन आंदोलन बनाने की, स्वच्छ भारत मिशन की तरह। यही तो लाइफ है। लाइफ, पता है ये मैंने सबसे पहले कहाँ सुना?
ये एक शब्द है, लाइफ, LIFE, यानी लाइफस्टाइल फॉर एनवायरमेंट। आज जरूरत है कि हम सभी लोग एक साथ आकर कलेक्टिव पार्टिसिपेशन के साथ लाइफस्टाइल फॉर एनवायरमेंट यानी लाइफ को एक अभियान की तरह आगे बढ़ाएं। ये एनवायरमेंटल कॉन्शियस लाइफस्टाइल का एक मास मूवमेंट बन सकता है। आज आवश्यकता है माइंडलेस और डिस्ट्रक्टिव कंजम्पशन के बजाय माइंडफुल और डेलिबरेट यूटिलाइजेशन की।
लाइफस्टाइल फॉर एनवायरनमेंट भारत में बना दुनिया के लिए। हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी की ये सोच सिर्फ भारत के लिए ही नहीं, पूरे विश्व के लिए है। किसी एक इंसान या समुदाय के लिए ही नहीं, हर राष्ट्र के लिए है। और हम सब इस आंदोलन से जुड़ सकते हैं इन 5 कदमों से। पहला कदम वही जो हमारे दादा दादी, नाना नानी हमेशा करते आए हैं।
सदियों से सुनते बोलते आ रहे हैं कि मौसम में लगे और आसपास उगे वही खाओ पियो, सेहत चौकस और साथ में खाने और ईंधन की बचत भी।
நமது உணவுகள் இப்பொழுது மாற்றப்பட்டிருக்கிறது. நாம் தினைகளை இந்த நேரத்தில் வரவேற்றுக் கொள்கிறோம். ஆனால் தினைகள் நமது உணவுகளையும் மகிழ்ச்சியையும் கலாச்சாரத்தையும் அறிவு கொண்டு இருக்கிறது. அதனாலே நாங்கள் தினைகளை வரவேற்றுக் கொள்கிறோம்.
दूसरा कदम, कदम उठाओ, समझे?
मेरी रोज की सवारी, बस नंबर 11, मेरे पैर।
मैं रोज साइकिल से ऑफिस जाता हूँ क्योंकि मेरी कंपनी हमें वॉकिंग, साइकिलिंग, कारपूलिंग के लिए एनकरेज करती है।
अगर हम सब मिलके ये कर सकते हैं तो पर्यावरण की सुरक्षा में योगदान दे सकते हैं।
तीसरा, सही चुने और सही चुन पाए इसके लिए डिमांड भी करें।
सोसाइटी में घर खरीद रहे हैं, बड़ा डिसीजन है,
पर कुछ चीजें नॉन नेगोशिएबल हैं, जैसे वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग एंड सोलर पैनल।
और इन्हें पूरा करना रियल एस्टेट इंडस्ट्री की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है।
पहले कस्टमर हमारे पास आते थे ब्रांड के लिए, प्राइस के लिए, वारंटी के लिए। अब कस्टमर आते हैं हमारे पास 5 स्टार रेटिंग के लिए और एलईडी बल्ब के लिए।
आजकल ज्यादातर डिलीवरी कंपनीज ई बाइक यूज करने लगी है, अच्छा लगता है।
चौथा कदम सिंपल, लाइट स्विच ऑन करने के लिए स्विच ऑफ करो। पांचवा कदम, सबको बताओ और इस आंदोलन को घर घर ले जाओ। मेरे देश को अपना वादा याद है और वो वादा हम बातों से नहीं, काम से पूरा करेंगे और हर देश, हर इंसान को साथ लेके पूरा करेंगे। एक्ट टुगेदर लाइफ के लिए।
Yeah, thank you very much. This was the film. I hope you have liked it. The language was Hindi, so I don't know how many have appreciated, but subtitles were there. It kind of conveys the philosophy of life. Thank you very much. Here ends my talk. If there are any questions, I would be very happy to take them.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi, for that presentation and the explanation of circular economy concept in the Indian context. This is like a economy-wide, example of a circular thinking and fairly unique in terms of its conceptualization. There was one comment on Zoom. There was one raised hand on Zoom. Maybe perhaps we can give the floor to Aris Kalix. No, I think maybe perhaps that was a legacy request and unable to reach the speaker. It'll be good to have any thoughts, questions, either in the room or on the Zoom.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for first of all, for this event and for the interesting presentation by the Chair of Niti Aayog. My name is Luca Marmo. I work in the Environment Director General of the European Commission, European Union in Brussels. It's just a kind of comment / question in terms of the communication around the content and scope of the lifestyle initiative, because it seems at moments being linked with climate change, but then environment as a whole is also mentioned. And in the presentation by Niti Aayog, it was clear that aspects related not only to climate change, but also energy aspects, biodiversity, pollution, material use, water. So you have a full spectrum that would seem to indicate an initiative that covers sustainable environment aspect as a whole, with a particular focus on climate change, of course, because that is one of the global challenge we have in front of us. But biodiversity loss is as big challenge, and anyway, climate, biodiversity, pollution, they are all interlinked. And we could add also aspects related to land degradation and so on. So it's just to underline perhaps this kind of across the board, because otherwise this initiative looks extremely interesting. And in a way, what in Europe we are doing with our European Green Deal is very much similar in a different context, but the objective of having economic growth together with sustainability and environmental protection brought ahead at the same time is what we are trying to do. And I understand this is also the basic objective of India's lifestyle initiative. And I think could also be worth linking perhaps this initiative with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And I'm thinking in particular of SDG 12 on sustainable consumption and production, which is an area around resource efficiency and circular economy with other words, so to say. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. In fact, you know, in WTO, of course, we are quite closely engaged with the discussions happening on some of the initiatives which EU has taken. But would invite Mr. Joshi to have any comments on this, especially on the biodiversity aspect. You're on mute.
No, very, very well said. You know, he kind of gave the entire spectrum, entire picture he presented. In Earth, we cannot live in silos. Like, you know, many times there are tendencies that we kind of make policies for the land, then we forget air. If we make policies for the air pollution, we forget the water. Similarly, if we are making policies for urban places, we forget, you know, how it is affecting the other sphere. Similarly, biodiversity and other things. Everything is so interconnected that we cannot treat them in isolation. So very well said. I'm completely in agreement.
Thank you. Yeah, so.
Hello, this is Zohm. I'm a student at WTI. My question is, I was reading an article and it said that there's a resurgence of the jute industry. And if you all know that the jute industry died after the emergence of plastics. So do we see, in order to build a lifestyle change, do we see like resurgence of industries coming in? And if they are, is there any benefits that the world is going to do to help these industries grow at the end? Because this requires capacity building, this requires financing. And so do you see that if there's a lifestyle change, there requires resurgence of old industries that have to be in new age coming in?
Mr. Joshi, you got the question? You're on mute, actually, so you need to.
So thank you very much for this question. You know, in our presentation also, we talked about, you know, how India is discouraging single-use plastics and encouraging jute, cloth, and other things. What our understanding is that, you know, it will not happen in one day that people are joining in queue for researching on jute, or there are industries coming back to the jute. It will happen slowly, but for surely it will happen. It needs, you know, the encouragement from all the sectors. The consumers, they are understanding that why jute or why cloth, this is better for them, better for the environment. Why some kind of food choices like millet and other things are better for them. Then slowly, when people start practicing them and government provides a kind of supporting environment, then industry, research, everything comes on. So we are not talking about that first for few years only. The campaign will go, then for next few years, some kind of supply phase will be there. And in some years after, the policy will come in. It will happen simultaneously, but it may take time. It may, you know, policy thing or the supply side of intervention may come slightly later, but certainly if more and more people practice these things, they will certainly to follow these. Thank you.
Right. I believe we have Aris Kalix back on Zoom, so if you can just try it. Okay, looks like there are some technical challenges. So if there are no other questions or comments, then I would like to thank you all for joining us today for this session. The presentation for which Mr. Joshi made will be made available from the WTO on the WTO channels. And if, of course, you have any follow-on questions or need to discuss this further, happy to, engage in any conversation and connect you with Mr. Joshi and his team who's working on this initiative in India. Thank you so much, and look forward to carrying on the conversations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Thank you.